When you consider extreme climatic conditions, grain exports, despite that nominal deal between Ukraine and Russia, disrupted still from Ukraine, which is Europe's breadbasket, food price inflation, net it out, does it remain elevated or have we seen the peak?
Yeah, good question. So food prices basically peaked in March this year using broad measures, looking at the United Nations Food Price Index, and have been trending down for the past 3 months or so. Now, it's important to note that food price inflation was apparent pre-pandemic and started to build about 12 to 18 months before the pandemic. And the reason for that had to do with weather issues, which are climate-related, essentially. It also had to do with geopolitical issues and the imposition of trade barriers, and also in the face of increasing demand, particularly from Asia. Now, those conditions persist today, and you have to add on to that increased energy prices and the flow-on effects to the soft commodity arena, I guess, and at the same time, a greater incidence of weather events caused by climate change. So, in our view, food prices remain elevated for some time to come, given those conditions.
If that is the case, and in the longer term, then, do we bet on agribusiness? Do we bet on alt meat, impossible foods? What do we do as investors in this environment?
Yeah, good question. So we believe that food security, as it relates to sustainability and the production of food, provides a long-term secular investment trend. So that is very, very clear. In terms of the protein complex, that's a good question. There are a couple. So it's an aspirational category that, as populations become richer, that demand more of. In some respects, developed markets such as the US and Europe, protein production is falling. Protein consumption, rather, is falling. But net, we'll see an increase in protein production. It's also, depending on the category, a very high carbon footprint food, particularly for ruminants, so beef and sheep meat. So alternative protein provides another way of satiating those aspirational demands. It's still at very early stages. We actually, from an investment thesis standpoint, perhaps prefer business-to-business applications for alternative protein rather than some of the consumer alternatives, I guess, at the moment. But it's definitely a trend that's here to stay.